Welcome to the Ben Gregersen Show.
This election year, there are so many things to think about. The last thing I need to do is take the time to make an informed decision. I'm voting Democrat because I like Senator Obama. He seems like a really cool guy, and he's so well-spoken. I don't need to look into his past, his beliefs, or his political experience. I can just blindly follow him wherever he leads.
I'm voting Democrat because I don't believe in the public school system. My grandchildren won't have to compete and study to be better. They will automatically be passed each year, so the egos aren't bruised and everyone's equal. Equally stupid.
I'm voting Democrat because I believe in freedom. I work hard all day and give my money to the government so others can stay home and do nothing. That is the ultimate freedom, right?
I'm voting Democrat because I believe Barack Obama should be the first black president.
Absolutely. Who cares if he's qualified or if he has the necessary experience for the job? He's black.
Experience doesn't mean anything this day and age. All that matters is he's advancing the elitist agenda of the Democrat Party.
That way the government employees of the people, they'll always be better than the people.
Thank you, Barack Obama.
I'm voting Democrat because then everyone will have access to health care. So no matter who you are or how much money you've got, the doctors won't have an incentive to give you better health care. And the quality of the current system will just deteriorate over time. But it won't be that bad. Free is better than quality any day.
Buddy?
Yeah.
Hey, Colin, wait up. Come here. You forgot these.
Thanks, Dad.
No problem. I'm voting Democrat because I want my son to learn about sex education while he's learning to read.
I'm voting Democrat because I can stick my head in the sand and not have to worry about the sadistic, power-hungry dictators who will continue to kill people and gain power. Let the next generation figure out how to handle the Hitlers of today.
I'm voting Democrat because I believe in change. And not just any change, but a change that translates into hope. And not just any hope, but a hope that brings about real change. I like change.
I'm voting Democrat
because I believe Hollywood celebrities should tell me who to vote for.
Because I want to pay more in taxes to the government. They know how to spend my money better than I do.
Because I think our president should meet unconditionally with terrorists before he meets our generals.
Because I don't mind if other countries tell me what to pay for gas.
Because I believe that a woman can do anything, except be our presidential nominee.
I'm voting Democrat because, well, you just wouldn't understand. It's an elitist thing.
Well, I think that video is pretty funny, and it sums up what the Democrat Party is today and the way liberals think. Well, it looks like the government's going to be open again tomorrow. I want to reflect, I guess, a little bit on what's happened the last 2 weeks. Well, as we all know, Obama and Harry Reid shut down the government because it was their way or the highway. They would not compromise with Republicans and give Republicans even a little bit of what they want. So there was a government shutdown. And basically, a lot of really crazy stuff happened during these last 2 weeks. How many of you heard about people that were kicked out of their privately owned homes? Yes, it happened. There were people that owned their house. It was privately owned, but their house was on public land. So the government kicked those people out of their house during the shutdown. There were people kicked out of their privately owned homes because their privately owned homes sat on public land. And that's just despicable. And Obama did a lot of this kind of stuff because he wanted to maximize the pain on Americans for political reasons. He wanted to make this government shutdown really hurt bad. You know, in the 90s, nothing happened like that. Nobody was kicked out of their house. Also, World War II vets weren't allowed to visit their memorial. Vietnam veterans weren't allowed to visit their memorial. But illegal immigrants had a protest rally at the memorials, at the National Mall, and Obama okayed it. So Obama okayed a illegal immigrant rally at the National Mall, but he wouldn't allow our veterans into the National Mall. So in Obama's world, illegal immigrants are allowed into the National Mall during a shutdown, but our World War veterans aren't. Isn't that sickening? Our World War II veterans are the reason we have freedom. We wouldn't have freedom without our veterans. And here we have an example of the Obama administration treating illegal immigrants better than our veterans. It's sickening. And our veterans got mad about it. Our veterans showed up to those memorials, tore down the fences around the memorials, and dumped them in front of the White House. It was quite inspiring. I saw pictures of a veteran that had his legs blown off, but yet he carried one of these barricades to the White House to dump it in front of the White House fence. And it's really inspirational. And one thing I thought was sad about it, too, is our veterans were greeted by SWAT teams at the National Mall. You know, they were treated like criminals out there by the Obama administration. The Obama administration really disrespected our veterans. Another thing that happened is they set up traffic cones all along the roads around Mount Rushmore so that people couldn't pull over and look at Mount Rushmore. And if the cops saw anybody pulling over to look at Mount Rushmore, they were giving people tickets and citations for looking at Mount Rushmore because it was a government shutdown. Hello, welcome to the Ben Gregersen Show.
Yeah, you talking about the mayor race?
Well, I wasn't talking about the mayor race yet, but I'd love to talk about that.
Well, I just wanted to say that this Paul Shepard guy, maybe people don't know this, but he works for the city, and he's a Democrat.
He is a Democrat, isn't he?
He's trying to act like he's a Tea Party member to split the vote with split the Republican vote, so Chase can get back in. Now that's just what they do. They get some guy running to split the vote, and then that's how the Democrat stays in there. I don't think he thinks he can win if he has to do that kind of stuff to get people in there. Now, the other guy, this Idaho Lorax, I don't know. I guess he's in there to split but you're splitting a lot of votes 4 ways there.
Well, yes, and Democrats do that. They always run a guy to split the vote. But really, what we have here is we actually got 3 Democrats running for mayor. So really, Democrats have 3 choices this year as far as voting. And
they're not supposed to know that, though. That's the whole thing. They're supposed to think they got only one Democrat in there, and that's Roger.
Well, it isn't. There's Paul Shepard and there's Idaho Lorax. And I got to tell you, Idaho Lorax, he is a liberal through and through, and he's a proud liberal. See, Roger, he's a liberal, but he kind of tries to hide it a little bit. But Idaho Lorax is a proud liberal. He's been out there, campaigning about global warming and sludge in the city, and he's a proud liberal, and he wants to wear that banter. So if you're a liberal, vote for Idaho Lorax, because he's proud of his liberalism. He doesn't try to hide it like Roger does. I mean, Roger's a liberal, but he kind of tries to hide it. So if you want someone who's a bold liberal, vote for Idaho Lorax.
I don't know if anybody's going to take him serious. I think he did get in there on his own, but I think this Paul Shepard, I think he's part of the coup to split the vote, and I've seen him do this before. They did this 10 years ago when they were challenged heavily, and they got those third party, and they jumped in there at the last minute. It was like the last 5 minutes before they closed, the registration. All of a sudden you had, these people jump in the race, and I guess they were afraid of losing.
Yeah. Well, when my dad ran, they did that to him. Mrs. Hewlett ran against my dad at the last minute and split the vote. So they are dirty like that, and I actually remember when my dad and Ed Cook ran it. When Ed ran against Roger, Ed put a float in the parade, and he put it in and did all the things he was supposed to do to get that float in there. And I remember Roger, he had some of his men from the city stand in front of his float and wouldn't let him enter the parade. And I think that was an abuse of power when that happened. And Roger even used the police, because eventually they let him go into the parade because they knew they didn't have any... they had no legal right to keep him from going into the parade, so they let him into the parade eventually. But in the middle of the parade, they tried some more shenanigans, and they tried to pull him over with the police cars, in the middle of the parade. And what was funny about it is, there were some guys, they had some puppet guys on there holding signs saying, "Stop Cook," And you saw Roger there, he was trying to stop Cook, using the police department. And I do believe that was an abuse of city power. And Roger does not have that kind of power as mayor.
Well, I'm going to vote for Blatt again, and, he's not a perfect guy. But by God, he's a nice guy. Now, you go up and talk to him, he's genuinely interested in the city, and he does his best. He runs against a lot of people that are opposing him, and that makes it harder to get things done. But all in all, I feel better about the city. I feel better about the city with him in there.
Yeah.
It seems like we've got more people working here, even though the economy's bad around the country. We're not doing that bad here. So.
Well, no, and actually, it's interesting because the economy is actually growing in Pocatello, which isn't something a lot of cities in America could say right now. And one thing I thought was kind of crazy, I didn't know this until I read the paper today, but Blatt actually went all the way to Washington, D.C. in order to try to get more jobs here. And some of the businesses that have come in since was because of that trip. And I guess he's the only mayor in America that's done that, that's traveled to D.C.
Well, it doesn't surprise me at all. He's a very nice fellow, and I think the city, we need to keep him in there. I know the Democrats don't like him because they want power again. They want that power back. But, well, I thank you for your time, and you're doing a good job there sharing this information.
All right, thanks. Yeah, Blatt's been a good mayor, and he's brought a lot of jobs back to Pocatello that were lost during Roger Chase's term. When Roger Chase was mayor, Pocatello was only growing at about 1%, and the economy was only growing about 1% here. And I remember Roger, he wrote an op-ed in the newspaper basically bragging about this 1% growth. And he said, 1% growth is all we want. If we grow any more than that, it will be bad for Pocatello. And I remember at the time I thought, what is he talking about? That's terrible. That's the slowest growth ever. I mean, you can't get slower than 1%. There's only one thing that's slower than 1% growth, and that's 0% growth. There's nothing good about 1% growth. If our town and our economy is growing only 1%, our economy is growing slower than a turtle. A turtle. Do we want an economy that grows like a turtle and that moves like a turtle? That's got to be the slowest economy ever. But yet Roger, he thinks 1% growth is wonderful. But, you know, during this recession, during these bad economic times, do we really want somebody who thinks that 1% economic growth is great, is fantastic? I don't think so. That's why we can't elect Roger again. Roger also rose taxes over and over again. He tried to tax people's roofs. See, he had this crazy idea that the city owned rain, and that rain hits our roof. You know, when it rains, the raindrops hit our roof, and because the raindrops hit our roof, that means our roof should be taxed. Our rooftop should be taxed because the rain is hitting our roof. You could call it the rain tax or the roof tax, I don't care. But Roger supported this crazy tax. Roger also raised taxes through fees. Roger was addicted to raising fees. Water fees, electric fees. You could say he's the fee king. He used fees to raise taxes, and the reason why is because in Pocatello, you can't raise taxes unless voters vote for it. So fees was Roger Chase's way of raising taxes without having to have an election, you know, of people that support his tax increase. I also remember Roger, he wanted Pocatello to pay to renovate the Holt Arena. Well, guess what, folks? Pocatello doesn't own the Holt Arena. The state does. We have no business touching the Holt Arena. The state owns it. But Roger, he wanted to raise taxes and put the financial obligation of the Holt Arena on the citizens of Pocatello. He said, hello, welcome to the Ben Gregersen Show.
I kind of think we need to go back to Roger because we're not as... This is a Democrat town that's always been a Democrat. We've always been successful because we've adhered to the Democrat philosophy in the unions and the working man. And so I think we need to stay with that kind of climate here, representing all the minorities and the people who need to be heard in the city council besides just the religious people. And you know, it seems like they're trying to get the religious attitude back in here, and what we need to do is have a diversity here in Pocatello.
I got to tell you, I think there's plenty of diversity, and I guess one thing I'd like to ask you is, do you want to pay taxes on your roof?
Well, if it goes to the poor and it takes care of unemployed people.
Well, does Roger have a record? Does Roger have a record of giving money to the poor? Because I don't see that. In fact, when he was mayor, I remember he actually picked on the poor. And the way he did it is he fined people if their roofs didn't look as pretty as he wanted them to. He was fining all these poor people in Pocatello because their roofs weren't up to his standard. And he'd make them, yes, he did. And he'd make people re-roof their house, even if they couldn't afford it.
I never heard of that in my life.
Well, it did happen. I remember my scout troop. We had several scout projects where we were helping people in the ward get a new roof because they couldn't afford it. He was fining poor people all over town because their roofs weren't up to his standard.
Well, I think there might have been one or two. I think you're over-exaggerating.
No, in some cases...
There's probably some roofs that are really bad, and something really needed to be done about those roofs.
You know what? There were roofs that were fined that weren't bad at all. In some cases, it was just the color. The color of that roof was blue, and Roger thought that looked funny.
No.
Yeah, so he'd fine people because of the color of his roof. I knew a guy who actually didn't re-roof his house. He just painted his roof a different color, and the city left him alone after that because the city thought he had re-roofed it. So the reason for them fining this person was because of the color of his roof.
That don't sound right. I think Roger probably. We ought to hear both sides of that story. I'm not going to argue with you because there might be another side of that story that we're not hearing here. And so, I think Roger did a good job.
Well, all I know is he wanted to tax rain. He felt that the city owned raindrops, so he was going to tax you for the rain.
Well, thank you very much.
I'm telling you, these taxes they're not good for the city of Pocatello. And Roger, he would raise taxes. And he raised fees all the time. That was a backdoor way of raising taxes. Roger loved raising fees, and it was terrible for our economy. It chased jobs out of town. Pocatello actually lost jobs during Roger Chase, even though there was an economic boom going on. There was an economic boom going on from 2001 to mid-2007, and the rest of the country was gaining jobs, and Pocatello was losing them. Hello, welcome to the Ben Gregersen Show.
Hi, I was just hearing you talking about Mayor Chase. Brother, I tell you, I wish he wouldn't even be thinking about running again. He was a crappy mayor.
Yeah.
The heck, he thinks he can do a better job this time?
No.
Brother.
He'll just try to raise taxes on us. And he'll try to make us pay for the Holt Arena even though we don't own it. The state owns it. But he tried pushing that responsibility on the citizens of Pocatello, and he was going to raise our taxes in order to pay for a building that we don't own.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm thinking back when the time, when he was the head of the Chief Foundation, and boy, I'll tell you what, all that money disappeared, and I never did forget about that.
Well, that's right.
Never did ever answer any questions about it, It just the money just disappeared, and that belonged to the to the citizens here.
That's true. That was public money. And Roger Chase was the head of the Chief Foundation.
Yeah.
And that the Chief Theater Foundation or the Chief Theater Committee, they oversaw the money, the Chief Theater money, and that was public money. And that money disappeared. It vanished after the Chief Theater burnt down. For years and years, people have wondered where the money went.
Yeah.
And the citizens of this town have a right to know where that money went because it is their money. That was public money. And Roger Chase should not be reelected until he answers that question, until he lets the people of this town know where that money went. If anybody knows where that money went, it's Roger Chase because he was in charge of the money. He was the head of the committee that oversaw that money. And after that building burned, the money disappeared. So Roger has some explaining to do.
Yeah, that was $1 million, if I remember.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was an awful lot.
Yeah.
And I know at the time they promised that the Chief Theater would be rebuilt, and it's still never been rebuilt because the money vanished.
Now I think they're maybe doing something with those tiles, or getting ready to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame to see them laying on their, just practically flat on the ground. There's a little elevation there, but hardly any, and you don't really even see it unless you get out of your car and go look at it.
Well, yeah, and that's just the sign, I
know, that's just the monument of it, but,
yeah.
I mean, the Chief Theater meant a lot to Pocatello.
It did.
A real historic, beautiful theater, and I spent a lot of time there when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So a lot of people now they don't even know what the Chief Theater is.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's been gone a long, long time, but the memory of it's still there for us older people that have.
It sure is. Well, thanks for calling.
Yeah, you betcha. Well, thanks for bringing that subject up, because that's just sticking in my craw.
Well, thank you.
I hope to heavens he don't win again.
Well, I hope not either. And he does have some explaining to do. He needs
Sure does. He sure does.
He needs to let the citizens of this town know what happened to that money.
That's right.
Well, have a good evening.
I agree. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Well, there you have it. Public money disappeared. It vanished. Roger was in charge of that money. He has some explaining to do, and he should not be reelected as mayor until he explains what happened to that money. The citizens of this town have a right to know what happened to their money. Anyways, I'm going to move on from Roger Chase. I want to talk about some of the other Democrats running. We got Roger Bray, and we got... I'm trying to remember his name. Well, Gary Moore. We got Roger Bray and Gary Moore. Gary Moore, he raises taxes too. He supported all the crap that Roger supported. He supported the rain tax and all of that garbage. All the fee increases. But same thing with Roger Bray. He supported tax increases and fee increases. The thing I want to get to about Roger Bray, though, is he was the author of the anti-discrimination ordinance that passed in this town, which I think is a crappy piece of legislation, and we need to repeal it. But I guess the question I have for Roger Bray is, does this anti-discrimination stuff apply to him? Because Roger Bray was a preacher, but he was an anti-Mormon preacher. And I know this because I had friends that went to his church, and they also were, they were in my scout troop in my church. And I'm LDS, and my friends were in our scout troop for a time. But that minister bashed our faith and ruined our faith in their eyes, and they stopped coming to scouts, and they didn't even want to be friends with me anymore because I was Mormon. So that was a disturbing thing. So Roger Bray is an anti-Mormon, and he's discriminated against Mormons, and because that's what anti-Mormonism is. It's religious discrimination. And so my question for him is just, does the anti-discrimination ordinance apply to you, sir? Because you have discriminated against Mormons in this town. And I think you've been a terrible representative in Pocatello. You've raised taxes on us far too much. And we need to stop electing Democrats in Pocatello. Democrats have hurt our economy in Pocatello. And I actually remember when I was younger that we almost lost the Union Pacific Railroad because of the Democrat Party in this town. The Democrats in the city council almost chased away the railroad. Imagine how many jobs would have been lost.